Hey everybody, Matty Ice here, back with another build video. This one is going to be slightly different than some of my other ones that I've done. As you'll see here, the background gameplay is just going to be me showing off the build, and I will not be taking this one into a Master Lost sector. This is primarily because this build is just more of a fun ad clear build for lower end content like the seasonal activities or just general farming. You could perhaps adapt this to be more endgame focused, but this is more to highlight just like what the build is capable of and give you some ideas to make your own build. So the way this works here is we are focusing on a couple different things. We are using Void 3.0 and the primary weapon is Wavesplitter. So we are using Wavesplitter because it is a Void weapon that after sustained damage applies suppression and can take advantage of Volatile Rounds. So we'll be proccing Volatile Rounds by killing something with a grenade and then doing damage over that 10-second window to just constantly proc volatile explosions on an enemy and do damage that way. You could also spread this out amongst several ads and just clear an entire room, but this is just to kind of showcase the different options. At the end of the video, I will go into the different aspects and fragments and mods that make this possible, as well as a couple different options that you can do to substitute them out. So one of the other reasons we're using Wavesplitter is because after sustained damage, it will apply a suppression effect to whatever you're shooting. This can be combined very nicely with Echo of Domineering, which will automatically reload your equipped weapon when suppression is activated. So you'll notice at the beginning of the video I was using suppressor grenades. I was also trying out vortex grenades here in later sections, but the whole point of this is to constantly be shooting for as long as possible over that window of 10 seconds to proc volatile explosions and to just keep doing that to clear room or deal massive damage. So with vortex grenades you can do similar things, you just won't get that additional suppression effect on later targets to get a second reload. Another reason we can use Wavesplitter for this build is that when you pick up an Orb of Light, you do extra damage for a brief window, and as you pick up more and more orbs it extends that window. So this will stack with Font of Might, which is something that we have on the build. So this is trying to stack as much damage as possible into this 10-second window. We are also going to be pairing this with Nezarac's Sin so that we can get our ability and super energy back as quickly as possible. Throughout the background gameplay you'll notice I'm generating a lot of Void Wells and I'm getting my super back very quickly. So this is a just ability spam build that's been slightly modified to focus primarily on Void, increased Void damage, and getting those Volatile Rounds procced. So you could potentially adapt this to use Mantle of Battle Harmony or some other ability regenning exotic armor, and it would still work fairly well. So I'm going to now cut over to a different portion of this build that does not use Wavesplitter. This is a second option that I was playing around with using Repulsor Brace. So if you're not aware, Repulsor Brace is an ability that lets you get a Void Overshield based on kills that you've gotten on Void debuff targets. So this works fairly well because you will be weakening, suppressing, and making things volatile throughout this entire loadout using various abilities. So pretty much anything you kill throughout this whole process will have a Void debuff on it, and it'll basically double your health pool. One thing that I have noticed while playing around with this is that sometimes it can get a little glitchy where it does not just give you more overshield if you already have part of your overshield missing, but if you're standing in a rift you can actually regen your overshield if you still have the time left on your buff. So even though it's been damaged you can regen it as long as you have that timer still active. And if you get an additional kill it will extend the timer rather than refreshing your shield on occasion. So that is the two different options for this build. I will now cut over to how you can use this, like set it up. So I'll go over the aspects, the fragments, the mods, and keep in mind I've got a couple different options for you here, so there's not going to be a dim link on this one. It's just going to be listen, watch, and kind of adapt as you see fit and whatever you prefer to use. Alright, so as I mentioned earlier, this build focuses primarily on using Wavesplitter and Nezarec Sin, so I'll just go over those really quickly. Wavesplitter is a trace rifle that when you have sustained damage on a target, as I mentioned, it suppresses, and when you pick up an orb of power, it gives you additional damage and an automatic reload. It does have the 3 levels of power, so you want to try and blow through your entire clip or just keep firing as long as possible. You don't want to let off that trigger. I'm also pairing this with Commemoration, simply because this is a void machine gun that auto reloads with that reconstruction perk. So this is going to also be able to proc volatile rounds and explosions and help me deal some damage if I don't want to use the trace rifle. So going over to Nezarec Sin, I have this as a solar version. So again, going over Nezarec, if you're not aware, any void damage kills give you ability recharge rate, and it really helps keep your ability uptime pretty high. So I have this one as solar because I wanted ashes to assets. So this is going to give me extra super energy on those grenade kills. And then I have Harmonic Siphon. This is going to allow me to get an orb of power off of either Wavesplitter or my Commemoration. And then I have Elemental Ordnance to proc Void Wells. You could swap that out for Elemental Armaments if you wanted. That's kind of a preference option. On the arms, I've got them as Void. I've got 2 bolstering detonations and then Font of Might for that extra damage. If you didn't want the Font of Might and you wanted to do more super uptime, you could swap that out for Font of Wisdom. You're going to be generating a ton of wells, so this is pretty much going to always be active as long as there's adds to kill. For the chest piece, I have it as Arc, primarily because I wanted Seeking Wells. You could swap this out for, again, Elemental Armaments if you wanted to go out and pick up your wells, and then you could have several ways to generate wells. That's kind of up to you, but again, I prefer Seeking Wells, so that's what I went with. I also did Trace Rifle Reserves because I'm using a Trace Rifle, whether it be Wavesplitter or Hollow Denial. For the boots, I'm keeping those solar, so we're going to have Bountiful Wells, so we drop 2 wells every single time we would normally drop 1. I can heal on orb pickups, and then get ability cooldown on orb pickups. And finally, the Bond. I've got 2 perpetuations, so I can keep my class ability cooldown as low as possible. We're going to be spamming Child of the Old Gods as much as possible. And then I've also got Reaping Wellmaker. So anytime I get an ability kill with a weapon, it'll spawn Void Elemental Wells if it's right after I do my Rift, which, since I have my Rift and I'll be doing Child of the Old Gods to weaken, this is always going to be available. So I'll be generating a ton of wells here. And this will generate 2 because I have Bountiful Wells. Alright, going into the abilities and aspects and fragments. So I kind of am torn between Vortex and Suppression Grenade. Vortex is going to give you an easier time of killing things with your grenade, but Suppression, if you can use it well, will give you that free reload. So it's kind of preference on that one for you guys, whichever you prefer. I'm leaning more towards Vortex just because you need the grenade kill to proc volatile explosions, or volatile rounds. The suppressor is just extra uptime on your damage, a little more utility. So whatever you can make work, but I'm leaning more towards Vortex. We're using Child of the Old Gods, which will weaken an enemy, and it'll either heal you or give you ability energy back. And then we have Feed the Void to proc Devour on Void ability kills. For Fragment, we're going to go Undermining for extra weaken on the grenade. This is a bit of a flex slot. You can swap this around, but this is pretty standard for most Void builds. Echo of Domineering. This is going to allow you to get that extra reload whenever you suppress a target. It gives you increased mobility as well, but that's less relevant. And then 10 extra discipline is always nice. Echo of Instability. This is what gives you those volatile rounds, but you have to defeat a target with your grenade. So again, that's why I'm kind of leaning more towards vortex grenades. And then Echo of Expulsion. So this is what void ability final blows can cause them to explode. So this is just to kind of give you even more explosion potential. Now, as I mentioned, you could swap Echo of Undermining around. You could swap it. If I were to pick one, I would do Remnants if you're going to use Vortex Grenade. If you're not going to use Vortex Grenade, I would either leave it as Undermining or find a different one that works for you. But that's what I would switch it to. So yeah, that's the build. It's like I mentioned before, it's less of a end game content build and more of just a fun add clear style build. So let me know what you think. This is, with Arc 3.0 coming out in the next couple weeks, I'm sure people will be switching more towards Arc, and I have a proposed build coming out for that next week. So keep an eye out for that. As always, if you could like and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. We have recently hit a huge milestone. We broke 200 subscribers, which is just amazing. So thank you all for that. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.